and welcome to another edition of my Become Unstoppable series. And as ever, I have another amazing guest for you. Would you like to introduce yourself, my lovely?
Absolutely, everything for you, Julie. So thank you very much for a warm welcome. My name is Kamil Domski, and I'm a founder at the Freedom Mastery coaching and mentoring services for rent-to-rent property investing.
Interesting. And we will talk about that a little bit more in a while. So those who don't know me, I'm Julie Fitzpatrick. I'm the founder of Millieside Therapy and Coaching, and I love supporting you individuals out there who are feeling stressed, lacking in confidence, and you really want to get your mojo back, or maybe you've never found it in the first place, so that you can become unstoppable. So before we get into the detail, my lovely, can you tell me, what does being unstoppable mean to you?
No, that's a very interesting question. To me, being unstoppable in the first place means that regardless of how you feel, whether you feel motivated, demotivated, when you feel flat or energized, you follow through every single day. Because we all can have days where you just feel a little bit down, deflated, but if you still follow through with your plan and you still make one step forward, you still make progress every day, regardless of how you feel. This to me means to be unstoppable. And I would probably compare that a little bit to like going to the gym. Sometimes you have this day when you don't feel like going, but if you still take your bag and you still go and you still do your workout, then it's not so much about how you feel, it's about you having that discipline to follow through every single day. And I think this is what being unstoppable means to me.
I love that. That is so true, because if we want to make changes in our lives, we have to break the old habits, don't we?
Yeah.
And to create a new habit, I mean, it depends on what they're saying in science these days, but it used to be a minimum of 21 days of consecutively doing something. But now I think they say it's much longer than that. So the more we build healthy habits into our lives, the more we do it with repetition, it just becomes our normal. So like you say, you don't wake up in the morning going, oh, I don't think I can be bothered. You might go, oh, I don't know if I'm a few, but I will go. And once you've been, you're just so pleased you've been. And then you feel like really chuffed with yourself. And then you've got all those happy endorphins and all that running around your body as well, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about that positive feeling. And I think the hardest step is that first step. When you step out from the bed, first step is hardest. When you go to the gym, once you walk into the gym, you're naturally okay. You will do your workout. And then, as you say, when you come back, you just feel so good that even though you didn't feel so much about going, you still managed to do it. And yeah, it's not as hard.
No. And I think when you're out of practice of doing something, or maybe you've never got into practice of doing it, then it does feel hard, because your brain will always go for what's easiest, right? And be going, yeah, but
Yeah.
Julie, you don't really want to go, do you? No,
Mm,
you're right. I don't really want to go. But once you're just doing it, you're not even questioning it, are you? You're just doing it the
yeah.
same way that, you clean your teeth. It just becomes a habit.
100%. And what you said about this turning it into a habit, it's a very powerful thing, because yeah, you can turn it into something, into a habit, and then all of a sudden you don't have to push for it. It becomes part of your standard. It's all about increasing those standards every single day. And I would say probably that, in addition to what I said before, is that becoming unstoppable and developing
Mm.
those habits every day, I guess.
Yeah, and making those small changes every day make a huge difference, don't they? You don't
Oh
have to
yeah.
go from sort of like here to here in one go. You just do your little baby steps, and then when you look back, actually you've covered quite a lot of steps, and then that makes you feel good as well, because you're moving forward. And those people out there who don't push themselves and don't make any changes, when you look back, nothing's changed.
Very
And,
true.
and I think that's quite sad, isn't it? Because obviously,
Well,
us as entrepreneurs, you have to keep pushing forward, don't you? Otherwise, you will get left behind in your business.
very
So,
true.
on that note, my love, do you want to give us a bit of background on you then? So, you're
Yeah.
the founder now of Freedom Mastery, but that hasn't always been the case for you, has it? How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Now, I would leave a joke here saying that when I was born, I was already a founder at the Freedom Mastery, but it's not the case. It did not happen. So, as you can see from my name and probably from my accent, and hopefully what I say makes sense. But yeah, I was born in Poland, in southern part of Poland, and I lived in Poland for 24 years, I believe. And then I moved to the UK quite randomly because I was invited for a 2-week holiday. I came to visit my cousin, and something in the back of my mind was telling me that I would like to try something different and something new. So I did convert my CV from Polish to English language just in case, okay? But I had my return ticket, came to the UK. I was welcomed by a lovely rainy weather, like you would normally typically be, right? Hi ho, happy days. Welcome UK, welcome England. And then I went to see my cousin, and everything went okay. I started spreading my CV, and within a week, I found a job. It wasn't the greatest job, but it was a job in the UK. I really wanted to try something different, something new. And rather than me returning back to Poland, I rang my missus and I said, look, I'm in the UK, I'm staying over. So now you need to pack your bags and you need to come and see me. And that's what happened. A month later, she came to me to see me. And at the beginning, just a regular job in a warehouse, nothing special. There was nothing special about me apart from the fact that probably at that warehouse, I was one of the better English speakers because I learned English since I was probably 11 or 12. Vast majority of people at the warehouse could not speak very good English. So I had a very good sort of head start because I was utilized for more responsible jobs. Like translating, creating manuals, creating new workstations, because I could communicate with English managers. So that was the beginning. And from there, I was just climbing up the ladder until I became the founder at the Freedom Mastery.
So how did you get into property though? Because what was the turning point there? So if you were working in a warehouse, how did you even know about property and rent to rent and that sort of thing?
Of course. So in the first place, like we bought our residential house back in 2015. And I always thought and I always knew that being in property is a place where a lot of millionaires and wealthy people are made. And it's that sustainable source of income. It's obviously I didn't know how to invest, but I knew how to buy property, because when you buy a residential, if you're working, it's not that difficult. You just buy, you get a mortgage, you need to have a deposit, you've got solicitors who tell you what to do, you've got the mortgage broker who tells you what to do. So it's not that difficult. It becomes more difficult when it comes from this idea into actually, buying property to invest. And back in Poland, I was always interested in a person called Robert Kiyosaki. And I think, vast majority of entrepreneurs would know the name Robert Kiyosaki, who is obviously very popular real estate investor in the US. So I just started sort of going back to what I read about him, his books, etc., because I read his books before. And I discovered that he's got some courses in the US about real estate. So I enrolled into one of his courses, like advanced property investing. And I started educating myself about investing into property, because believe it or not, there are certain differences between the UK market and the US market. But at the same time, a lot of those things will be very, very common. And I think they will be very, very common across the globe. That's why I invested into this program. I went through this program. It opened my eyes big time. And then I thought, okay, this is it. I want to start investing into property. And that's how it all started. We bought our first buy-to-let property in 2017, and then another one in 2020. So at that point, it came to my mind that it's an amazing strategy, but it's a slow strategy. If I want to just, buy property, then save, buy, save more money, buy, it's going to be a long-winded process. And then I started exploring different strategies more relevant to the UK. And I came across different strategies like deal selling, like rent to rent, like lease option agreements. And to me, it seemed like rent to rent at that point was the most suitable strategy for me, whereby I can still be in my full-time job. I don't have to be so much hands-on, and I can still sort of manage those properties and get cash flow, good profit from those properties without even quitting my job. Later on, it turned out that my life went a little bit different way. But at that time, when I was getting education about those creative strategies, it seemed to me that rent to rent is the strategy that I want to utilize, because I can just scale up my property business much, much quicker and without using a lot of my own money as well.
So one of the things that's coming to my head right now is that all of everything you just said is phenomenal for someone who has left their native country at 24, didn't realise they were coming to stay, but stayed. I would wager that you're not an average kind of guy, right? And I know you from, we met in our business coaching world, didn't we? So that is actually full of business owners who have got the same objective, right? We've all got different businesses, but the objective is the same, to grow and scale your business. But when you come from a different country, that kind of almost doubles the hardness, if that's a phrase, right? So being a business owner and building a business is very challenging. And well, I found it very challenging because I've never done it before in my life, right? 35 years in the corporate world, like complete chalk and cheese. So for me, it's like been really challenging, and I've had to overcome a lot. I've done a lot of work on myself, uncovering my beliefs, because my belief always was I wasn't good enough, right? So being a 24-year-old from a different country, coming into a different country and building and scaling what, you know, like you have, what mental things, if you like, have you had to overcome to actually get where you are now?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you actually asked that. So I suppose everybody can relate themselves as if they were packing their bag, going to live in another country tomorrow. How would their life look like, and what struggles they would have? And the first thing that would probably come to your mind would be the language. With me, I had a bit of a comfort there, because, as I said before, I was learning English for about 12 years of my life, maybe 11 years of my life. So I think I had some good basics there, and I thought, I'm going to come to the UK and I'm going to be like smashing it. The reality was a little bit different, right? And that was my first struggle in the UK. I remember that it was yesterday. So I came to the UK. I was at the airport waiting for my cousin to come and pick me up, and there were English people. And at that time, I was smoking. So I wanted to have to borrow a lighter from somebody because my lighter didn't work. And I said something, and they didn't understand me, and I just had to point at my cigarette in order for them to understand what I need. And that was like a first sort of light bulb moment, saying, okay, there's more work that has to be done than you think. And then the same day, I went to the shop, and there was that girl at the counter, and she said to me something. Apart from hello, I didn't understand even a word. And I was just like, okay, just that's my money, I want to pay, and I want to, and I just got out from the shop because I was so embarrassed that I didn't understand what she was saying. Later on down the line, when I started understanding English people and getting familiar with English accents, I realized that she just asked me if I want a bag. But when at that time, it didn't sound like that. So my challenge was obviously language in the first place. And although I thought it's going to be easier, it wasn't easy. My first job was also with a lot of Eastern Europeans, so I didn't have to use English language because we could all communicate in our native languages. Because Slovakian, Czech, Polish, they all sound very, very similar, so we can all communicate in the same language. Later, obviously, it was all about stepping out of your comfort zone. So my first stepping out of my comfort zone was actually to go to the university here in the UK to go and study ESOL for international students, because I really wanted to have some form of kind of degree or certificate confirming that I can speak good English language. So that was my first sort of education in the UK. Thankfully, when I applied for it, I was already delegated to the highest level, so I didn't have to go through it like for many, many years. It was just a final year that I had to complete. And when I completed it, I just got my ESOL Cambridge certificate. I got that, and I was just much more confident after this. But in the meantime, I already started working with English people as well, which gave me a massive boost in confidence. And I think I overcame this sort of blockage once and for all that my language isn't good enough. That was one of them.
So when you realized it wasn't good enough, you could have gone one or two ways, couldn't you? You could have gone, oh, well, I'll just make do. But you didn't do that, did you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and I'm in the UK for about 13 years now. I still know people who stayed in that same warehouse when I started initially for the same reason, because they are too lazy or they don't want
Mm.
to learn English language, and it's just comfortable for them, so they stay where they are. Or as you say, I could just pack my bags and I could just go back to my old job, which was a very good job. You know, it was very neat, very tidy. I had to use my brain. I was at that time an engineer. I was operating CMM machines in a car factory, right? So it was a very nice job. But I was not looking at nice. I was not looking at comfortable. That's the thing. I was always
Mm.
looking to challenge myself and do something different. And although it might sound to you that working in a warehouse is not very challenging, to me it kind of was challenging, because I had to work with, obviously, within the UK, English
Mm.
language, English people, different culture. Everything was new around me, and it was just, yeah, it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, because when you first come, it's like the new world and new this and new that. You can go to so many different places because everything is so fresh and new. So life was good.
Yeah. What do you think made you different then to those other people who are like still in the warehouse now, the ones that you're talking about? What do
Hmm.
you think? What have you got that they didn't want to have or don't have?
Great question. I think first of all, if somebody's born to be a warehouse operative and they think that it has to be that way, that's okay. That they are congruent to the sort of standards. But to me, working in a warehouse was not a standard. In all fairness, when I first came from Poland, as I said, my job in Poland was I was an engineer. Coming into the UK and starting my job in a warehouse, I already felt like I was degraded, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I knew that it's just a temporary thing, and I'm going to regain my status, and then I'm going to exceed it, and I'm just going to go one way. And I did, because after working in a warehouse, I went back to engineering in aerospace. And after this, I started just going from one engineering job to another, to a little bit more responsibility, obviously better paid. At some point, I got a formal sort of degree in engineering, and I was a production engineer in aerospace business, responsible for two departments. So my responsibility was quite big. And I felt that this is my place on earth, because I thought that at that time engineering is who I should be. Like, I was born to be an engineer, analytical mind, numbers, and so on and so on. But after a few years of being an engineer, same instinct started sort of, giving me some voices from inside, saying that, okay, you're becoming too complacent. You need to start thinking about doing something more.
Wow.
And that's obviously when the property thing came up. And that's it. The
So
funny,
that interests, sorry to interrupt, that interests me anyway. Like when you said that little voice inside, right?
yeah,
Do you mean AKA your intuition?
my intuition, my desire, my drive,
Mm. Mm.
um, my ego, maybe, I suppose, as well.
Okay, so did you ever feel then that you had to, you came over, you've left your country, right? So there is a bit of an expectation, isn't there, that maybe you got a fear of failure, maybe you got a fear that I can't possibly fail because what are people going to think of me back home? Did you ever have any of that going on for you? And is that what drove you?
Fear of failure is something that, yes, it was with me for many years, with my wife even for longer.
Mm.
And that, I think that's the one of the main reasons why people just come in here. They find their first job and they just stick to it, because they are
Mm.
afraid of failing, and if they started something new. Yes, of course. I think fear of failure is something that, obviously, in my case, as you said before, it kind of was double, because I'm not in my home country and I'm
Yeah.
doing something new. For you, you're doing something new because obviously you weren't born an entrepreneur. You just had to grind your way up in order to become an entrepreneur. So there is always, every step of the way, there was always that sort of fear of failure. But the difference, as you know, because you're a fantastic business owner,
Oh,
it is that you have to act regardless, because we all feel fear. I mean, only a madman, an insane person, wouldn't feel fear. It's just what we do with it regardless, isn't it? So some people will listen to that voice and they'll take a step back. But you clearly didn't listen to that voice, and you still sort of started your business, and you still made your progress forward, and you are who you are today because you took action regardless of the fear that you felt. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's correct. And the thing is, though, as I said earlier, right, I've invested a lot of time and money investing in my personal development, right?
Yeah.
Had I not done that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you now. Would I have gone into the business? I think I would, because at that point I'd got in 2020, I was in a permanent role, and then I got made redundant in the middle of the pandemic, right? So then I was at a point where, well, I've got to do something. I either go back, get another job in the corporate world, or do something different. Now, I'd been bored, I was going to swear then, quite a bit for a long time. It wasn't my purpose and passion. It served a purpose, right? Because I used to earn fairly good money. But you get to that point where you can't give it up, because it wasn't, if I wanted to give up, I was giving up on my family. That's how I felt, because you get accustomed to having, a nice holiday and a car. Don't get me wrong, I'm not overly materialistic. We're all a little bit materialistic, but I felt pressure because I was always the breadwinner. I'd always been the breadwinner. And I felt that I couldn't quit because everyone relied on me. So there was that pressure. But when that situation was kind of taken out of my hands, it was the best thing that could have ever happened. And actually, I tell this story that actually I probably manifested it, because I kept saying how much I hated it. And I was on 3 months notice period, and who in the middle of the pandemic is going to make themselves unemployed, right? And also at that time, and I didn't realize that at the time, I was going through symptoms of the perimenopause, which meant my confidence was on the floor. My anxiety had started to raise. I was having palpitations. I couldn't string a sentence together. I couldn't even remember the names of people that I worked with for years. It was awful. And that kind of just made it all more of a place I didn't really want to be. But I felt like I didn't have an escape route. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. Also, probably the people you were talking about earlier, stuck in the rut of whatever job they've got, because they haven't got the confidence to pull themselves out of it, because the fear kicks in. Now, fear is at the root of most people's issues, right? Because bearing in mind, we're born with two fears: fear of loud noises and fear of falling. Everything else is all learnt behavior, right? So we've either learnt it from our caregivers, we've learnt it from the role models around us, we've learnt it from society, from the TV, from the news, right? But it isn't who we are. And that impacts our belief systems, which again aren't who we are either, because we create most of those between the ages of 0 and 7, which is really scary.
Yeah.
But obviously we evolve them a little bit. But the core root beliefs, like I don't feel good enough, I didn't have my needs met, I'm unlovable, then we spend the whole of our adult life in our subconscious mind believing that to be true, right? So you don't push yourself forward for that promotion because I'm not good enough. I'm not going to go for that new job because I'm not good enough. I just don't feel confident enough, right? In the same way, lots of businesses will fail, won't they? Because people are too fearful of putting themselves out there, too fearful of being visible. And if you're not visible as a business owner, you might as well give up, mightn't you? Because if no one knows who you are, if you're the best kept secret, what's the point?
100%. I completely relate to that.
So do you see some of your story in mine as well then?
So yeah, you touched base on a few points when I felt, yes, you're talking like spot on here. What I want to add to what you said is the fact that fear is something that you learn and acquire, but that, in all fairness, that aware part of that awareness in yours, like the aware part of your brain should realize that this is something that you acquired over your life, and this is not part of your identity. If you want to overcome that fear, then absolutely you can overcome it. And I would say to everybody listening, everybody who's like thinking about starting a business or doing something important in their life, but for some reason they were always held back by fear. Who said that, you know, this is the wrong thing to do? Like, I think what I want to say is, if you have a challenge in your life and you're being held back by the fear, it's still better than overcome the fear, do something and regret that you've done it, rather than being at the last breath of your life thinking, I haven't done it, now I regret my life. This is the biggest fear that I have in my life, that I would die this way, being average. I don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely, totally spot on. Agree with that. It, you know, when we do something and push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, and maybe it doesn't work out, but it's not failure, it's feedback, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, okay, I tried that, that didn't work. It doesn't mean I've got to give up. It just means I just need to change it, tweak it, or I need to go and get help. I need to invest in my personal development, whether that be therapy to fix your limiting beliefs, whether it be business coaching. I went for both. So when that time in 2020, I started to retrain myself. And I did train as a counsellor a few years prior to that, 10 years before that, but never did it as a full-time job. But I had that background, and I was always the coach at work. Everyone came to me for help and advice, right? So I thought, I love that. So I started to retrain myself. So I did NLP, Master NLP, Rapid Transformational Therapy, Hypnotherapy. But then at the same time, I now know how it happened, but I didn't know it at the time. It was the power of funnels when Adam Stott came into my life, right? So I knew then that I also, how I knew I needed it, I'm not really sure. Good point. I don't know. I guess it's just I started. Are you struggling to start your business? Yes. You know, and all, you know, all that stuff. So I embarked on that at the same time, but I had to go back to work. So then at this point, I'm working full time now. I'm training. I'm learning how to build a business, and eventually I'll start practicing on people all this new wonderful stuff that I'm learning, and I'm starting to see results, and I'm like, oh, finally I get to do something that I love, right? That really fulfills my purpose and passion. But then working and trying to do that, it was just too much. So in the end, in December 2020, I cut off my life support machine, aka my job, to go all in on my business. Now, has it been easy? No, it hasn't. Do I need it to be more abundant in many, many ways? Yes, I do. But the important thing is I'm still doing something I love. And not only do I wake up every morning excited because what's going to happen today, because I can manage my own calendar now, I'm not dictated to by some corporate company, but I actually get to help transform people's lives. I mean, how amazing is that? And if I do have a day where I feel a bit, oh God, what's the point? It's never going to, you know what? I just watch a couple of my video testimonials and I go, you know, Julie saved my life. Who gets to say that?
Yeah.
You know?
Very true. Very true. You didn't choose the easy and soft option,
Oh,
but
God,
instead
no.
you chose an option where you feel fulfilled in the best
Yeah.
way you can possibly think. And yeah, absolutely. Being comfortable, it's kind of boring if you think about it. Like when you're comfortable, what's happening? Like there is no spark, there is no nothing. Yeah, you're sitting watching Netflix and stuff like that. Yeah, you can waste your life doing it. You're gonna have wealth of knowing about, you know, different things around you, but your life, what's your life about? Like, what does that mean to other people, and what value did you actually bring to this planet?
Yes. And I get really sad when I hear people, even maybe in their 50s, right? And they're going, oh, well, I've only got another 8 years till I retire. And I'm like, oh my God, how can you even be speaking like that? So what do you think you're going to do when you retire then? How's that going to be for you? What, you're just going to sit there and veg in front of the telly? Because even if you are going to retire, you need to be doing something. Otherwise, give it 4 or 5 years and you'll probably be dead because you're dead of boredom. And yeah, that makes me really sad.
Well, the thing is, you cannot impact everybody. Like, you can be positive, and in all fairness, you are positive, but because when you're around people, you will be inspiring people with your positive energy and attitude. But some people still sort of live consistently in that old belief system that they
Mm,
created when they were young, and we hear that everywhere. That's why they repeat the same thing over and over again, like life was a struggle to them.
yes.
Look, if that's how they live, that's what they believe in. Yes,
Mm,
what you said before, I 100% agree. You need help. You need to find somebody who's going to make you more energized, more willing to live and do something more in your life. So get yourself a coach, get yourself a mentor. I'm a big believer that these days in the 21st century, especially at the times after COVID, everybody who wants to live a quality life and wants to improve need a
mm,
coach or a mentor who will take them to where they want to be, somebody who physically achieved what they want to achieve or who they
mm,
want to become.
mm.
Because to do it by yourself, it's going to take you a lot of time, a lot of failure, a lot of disappointments. Supposedly, a lot of people would give up at that point, but you can find a shortcut
Mm,
by finding somebody who's going to just grab your hand and take you to the point where you want to be.
mm,
That is a massive saving of your time, of your effort, of your frustration, of your stress.
mm,
And then you will just get to a place where you want to be much, much quicker. And then you can just
mm.
find yourself a completely new target. But you will
Exactly.
end up in being like your version of yourself, but 3x, 10,
Mm,
4x, 5x if you do it.
exactly. I totally agree. And yes, sure, there's going to be an investment, and maybe it might be quite a hefty investment, but that investment will, serve its purpose, won't it? So that you can grow and scale and have money in abundance, right? But you've got to have the right mindset. You've got to have the right drive. You really got to want to do something. And
Hmm.
I would say to anyone actually who does want to build a business, right? Whatever you do, don't choose something that you're not passionate about, because take it from us, right? It is hard. I don't like using the word hard actually, but it can be really, really challenging. And there's times in my life where, and I thought, is it all worth it? And I'm sure you have as well. But if you've got something that you're not passionate about, then you probably will fail, because it will just, you'll be like pushing that boulder up the hill, won't you? That it just keeps falling backwards. But at least if you're passionate about something, you'll push through it. And one of the things I teach in my group program actually is a big section on fears, and we do a hypnosis as well around the fears, so we can eliminate the fear a little bit more. But one thing I sort of teach them as well is that if you imagine there's a seesaw and you've got fear sitting on one end and desire sitting on the other end, right? The scale will either be that way or that way, right? So if you're living in fear, fear's going to win, right? Fear's going to be the heaviest part of that seesaw.
Yeah.
But if your desire is bigger than your fear, then you can tip that seesaw. So, like for example, if you wanted to jump out of a plane, right? If you don't want to ever jump out of a plane, your fear will always outweigh that desire because you don't want to do it. But if you've always wanted to jump out of a plane, yes, you'll be fearful, given, bear in mind, that is one of our allowed fears of fear of falling, right? But if you really want to do it, your desire will be higher.
Yep.
So always think, if you want to push through something, you can do it if your desire is bigger than your fear. Don't let it be the other way around, that the fear wins.
Yeah, 100%. It just reminds me of a conversation I had with my client yesterday, because she had a bit of a struggle to get her deal across the line recently. She had a lot of conversations with landlords. Now, she was facing this concept that people were just questioning if she's the right person to do it. Now, I said the same thing. I gave her like a very similar comparable. There is a fear of somebody and there is the value. So what outweighs what? If you give them enough value so they want to work with you, that will outweigh the fear that they have. But if
Mm.
they don't see enough value, then the fear will win and they will end up not working with you. Same thing, just reinforce whatever matters to you the most, but
Mm.
in all fairness, do not allow fear to win in your life, because you will you will die full of regrets, and you will die with those negative emotions that you probably wasted part of your life or a lot of your life. I certainly feel that about, a few years of my life when I felt that I'm comfortable where I am, and I was at some point comfortable where I was. But then, as I said, that voice inside of me said, this is not how you want to die. This is not who you want to be. My boy was born in 2016, and then it was another sort of impulse in my life to show him that life is not just about working and educating, like the old system tells us to go forward with, because that was the system that was created many centuries ago, and maybe back in those days there was not so much opportunity. But nowadays, information is everywhere. You can get that information for free. You can buy shortcuts. You can spend money on coaching programs and mentoring programs. Get the knowledge that you want. Get the knowledge that will take you to where you want to be. It's so much broadly available that making good living, creating lifestyle that you want, and becoming your best version of yourself, it's never been as easy as it is today. If somebody tells me that there is a lot of competition out there, it's hard to achieve success nowadays because so many people strive for the same thing. In my opinion, they're in a very, very wrong mind frame, and they should reprogram themselves, because now it's easier than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 100 years ago.
And I think that's very true. And the people who are living in that scarcity, that is fear of scarcity. And unfortunately, if our subconscious believes that we're fearful and we're lacking and everything else, doesn't matter what we consciously say, the subconscious will always win. So we have to be careful about what we're projecting, right? So we talk about manifestation and things like that, right? People believe it, don't believe it. But let me tell you this, whether we like it or not, are an energy, and our energy is projecting all around us. So if we spend our day in a negative mindset, whinging and moaning about life, and now poor me, life's just been so terrible to me, why can't nice things happen to me? Well, that's why, because of the language and the energy that you're putting out, right? Don't get me wrong, I know terrible things have happened to terrible people, and I'm not saying that that's not the case, but even there's so many people out there that something terrible has happened, then that gives you the drive, doesn't it, to go and push yourself forward. Now, little example, and for me, it was huge, but literally a year today, this when we lost Luther. And he was my business partner. He was, when I decided to go on this journey, he just decided that he was going to come with me. So when clients came, and I've got like a little therapy room down the garden, he just came, and he's all over my logo. He's all over my website and everything, right? Because he was important to me, and he decided that he was going to join me. And last year when he died, it kind of really did floor me. And my vibration, I was just starting to get to the point where I was starting to get regular clients booking in calls and stuff like that. I kind of felt like I was really getting there, and then bang, my vibration was on the floor, right? I was grieving. But then at that time, I decided that I think I might change my niche, and I got all confused, and then I ended up talking to no one, and then I was getting like no one coming at all. But as part of that journey, in my therapy training that I was still doing, I always found it hard to meditate, always found it hard to get out of my head. And I was always too busy being busy. I was always like running around my corporate life. I was always like that. Never time for me, never really put myself first. And then one day, one of my clients registered a Luther star for me. And we were doing our meditation, and my mentors were saying, right now, I want you to just imagine a bright shining light. Go and find your favorite star. And I suddenly went, oh my God, I've got my Luther star. And from that moment on, like that, I just started to connect. I learned the art of connecting and that energy. I'm still on that journey now, but the point being, Luther was such an impact on me and many other people in his life, but in his death, he's still with me. He's still teaching me. His spirit's still with me. And through him, I've now changed the way I work with my clients. And my whole program actually is about going back to basics, or maybe people have never even been on basics. And that means we're too busy being busy. We haven't got time for ourselves, so we're not respecting ourselves. And as a result of that, that's when we get poor health, psychological and physical conditions, because it's all connected. Whether we like it or not, our whole body is connected. And, you know, through losing him, it's transformed my life and it's transforming other people's. And also I've got a book coming out as well, which is a story. But anyway, that's another story. But my point being, things happen. In fact, Luther only came into our lives because we got burgled. And my son, we'd moved into the house we're in now. My son always wanted a dog and I kept putting it off. And we got burgled 2 days before Christmas. It was devastating. Took all the Christmas presents. The boys were fairly young then. And as a result of that, Luther came into our lives. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling other bigger traumas than that. I know there's much bigger things that go on. But my point is, sometimes it takes us to lose our job. Sometimes it takes someone to pass. Sometimes it takes a pandemic. But whatever it is, sometimes we have to look back on that and be grateful for it, that it turned us into the person that we wanted to become.
Wow. That is very powerful what you've just said. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. Be grateful is probably what's the biggest value coming up from this call. Like there's so many different like golden nuggets, but being grateful for what we've done and what we've achieved so far. 100%. Be grateful for what happened before, but at the same time look forward and really just strive to becoming a better version of yourself. One step at a time, as you said before as well. One step at a time. Progress forward. Be an example. Just become a standard. Just be this light around people's lives. That's what I always like try to do. Even if I don't feel it. I have days like everybody where I don't feel it. But when I have my weekly call with a mastermind session with my clients, with my students, I will never let them recognize that something is wrong, because I'm not there to bring them down. My job is to bring them up. I'm there to listen to what they go through, the struggles, the problems, the opportunities, to celebrate their wins, because they secure deals, they make money, and I love it. You know, they become financially independent. But I'm there to support them all the way through, and I will not allow them to recognize that something is wrong on my end, because that's not my job.
Exactly, because you're a coach to them, aren't you?
I'm setting up a standard for them. And as you said, complaining about things and moaning, it's so easy to go back to that trap, like you're complaining. I really, and it's a battle every day. I catch myself sometimes like complaining about something, but then the other part of myself is telling me, hey, this is you 5 years ago. This is not you today. Stop doing this. And I was going to swear as well, but I'm not going to. I'm not going. You're not that person anymore. There is no complaining in this house. There is no complaining in this office. So
I like it. Yeah. Quit. And it's good for people to pick you up on it if you are doing that as well, isn't it? Because it is easy to fall down. Absolutely. But anyway, my lovely, as much as I'd love to carry on this conversation, we are running out of time. So just before we wrap up, do you want to just do a shout out on what your business is and how people can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this call was mainly to inspire people to take action on whatever people want to do in their life. However, if anybody is interested in investing into property, if you feel that you don't know where to start, if you feel that maybe you have not enough money to buy your property, or if you feel that you just want to get on the property ladder, by all means, get in touch with me. I'm very, very happy to explain you what are the creative ways of investing into property without even buying property. You can benefit financially quite well using rent-to-rent strategy. It can be done when you work full-time, or if you're unemployed, it can work part-time. It's a very flexible strategy. People can reach out to me on my social media. My favorite social media platform is Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, you can find me on Kamil.Domski. And Instagram, you can find me at Kamil Domski Rent to Rent UK. You can also find me on YouTube, on LinkedIn. But these are the two main ones. And I'm always happy to share my phone number if somebody wants to reach out to me. My number is 075 22 571-026. So feel free to reach out to me on my phone. You can text me with whatever is that you're struggling right now, and I'm very, very happy and approachable to give you a hand and see if we are the right fit. Then maybe we can work something out together.
Amazing. So anyone who wants to work with me, I work with my clients on a one-to-one basis, and I've got a pilot group program going at the moment, which is called Your Breakthrough. And this has taken us all back to the things that I've said, getting you back to basics, teaching you how the mind works, teaching you all about fears. And throughout this, it's not just a conscious coaching program. We're actually making permanent subconscious changes as well, because we're using hypnosis, we're using audios, and we're doing growth work to really, really dig deep into what's going on underneath for you. So thank you so very much for watching. When I put this out, we'll put all Kamil's details down for you as well. And then this will go on my Millieside YouTube channel as well. So pop along over there, like and subscribe, share around. We want these messages to get around as many people as we can. So thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time with another amazing guest on my Become Unstoppable series. Bye.
Bye-bye.